In a galaxy where alien species measure their worth by millennia of experience and technological superiority, where the most elite snipers from a dozen worlds compete for legendary status, a young human with calloused hands and determination in her eyes is about to shatter every record and every assumption about what humanity can achieve. When Sergeant Maya Chen steps onto the most prestigious shooting range in the galaxy, surrounded by beings who have perfected their craft for centuries, nobody expects the quiet farm girl from Earth's agricultural colonies to do anything more than embarrass her species. The Zephyrian marksmen with their 4 eyes and natural targeting systems. The crystalline Vorthan whose bodies literally calculate trajectory. The ancient Kalari whose race has been refining precision for 3,000 years. They're all about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon isn't technology. It's the refusal to accept that something is impossible. What happens when raw human instinct meets alien perfection? When a species that learned to hunt with primitive weapons faces off against beings who were born to kill from impossible distances? The answer is about to echo across 3,700 meters of space and change the way the entire galaxy sees humanity forever. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Galactic Marksmanship Academy's training grounds as Maya Chen adjusted her rifle strap and tried to ignore the stares. Every alien species represented in the academy had stopped what they were doing to watch the new human arrival. Their expressions ranged from curious to dismissive, but none looked particularly impressed. "Another human recruit," whispered a tall Zephyrian instructor, his 4 golden eyes tracking Maya's movement with predatory precision. "Third one this cycle. The others washed out in the first week." Maya kept her head down and continued walking toward the registration building. She had heard the stories about human failures at the academy. Earth's military had been sending candidates for 2 years now, ever since humanity joined the Galactic Defense Coalition. Not a single human had made it past the preliminary trials. The academy itself was a marvel of alien engineering, built into the side of a mountain on the neutral world of Kepler Prime. Shooting ranges stretched for kilometers in every direction, some extending into space itself for zero-gravity training. The facility trained the elite marksmen of 12 different species, beings who would go on to serve as snipers, assassination specialists, and long-range tactical experts in the Coalition's military forces. Maya paused at the entrance to watch a group of Vorthan students practicing on one of the closer ranges. The crystalline beings moved with mechanical precision, their bodies literally calculating wind speed, gravitational variations, and target movement in real time. Their shots were mathematically perfect, each one finding its mark at distances that would challenge most human artillery. Impressive, isn't it? Maya turned to find herself face-to-face with Instructor Thane, a Kalari whose elongated skull housed one of the most sophisticated targeting computers ever evolved. The Kalari were legendary marksmen, their race having developed perfect accuracy over thousands of years of evolution on their predator-filled homeworld. "Very," Maya replied honestly. "I've never seen anything like it." Thane's silver eyes studied her with calculating interest. "You're the new human." "Maya Chen." "Correct. From the agricultural colonies." "Yes, sir. I've read your file." "Grew up hunting pest animals that were destroying crops. Self-taught. No formal military training." His tone was neutral, but Maya caught the underlying skepticism. "Tell me, Miss Chen, what makes you think you belong here among beings who have been bred for precision shooting?" Maya met his gaze steadily. "Because I can hit what I'm aiming at." Fani made a sound that might have been amusement. How refreshingly simple, very human. He gestured toward the registration building. "Well, you'll have your chance to prove that soon enough. The preliminary trials begin tomorrow." As Maya completed her registration, she learned more about what she was facing. The Academy's standards were brutal. Students had to demonstrate proficiency at ranges starting at 500 meters and extending to over 4,000 meters under various environmental conditions. They would face moving targets, adverse weather, gravitational anomalies, and scenarios designed to test not just accuracy, but mental resilience under extreme pressure. The other species had clear advantages. The Zephyrians possessed 4 eyes that could track multiple targets simultaneously and calculate complex trajectories instinctively. The Vorthans were living computers, capable of processing environmental variables faster than most artificial intelligences. The Kalari had evolved perfect hand-eye coordination and could enter trance states that eliminated human limitations like breathing and heartbeat interference. Maya's dormitory assignment put her in a wing with other probationary students, those who hadn't yet proven themselves worthy of the Academy's full program. Her roommate was a young Draknari named Kess, whose reptilian species was known for exceptional eyesight and steady nerves. "So you're the human everyone's talking about," Kes said as Maya unpacked her few belongings. They're taking bets on how long you'll last. The odds aren't in your favor. What's the longest a human has lasted? Maya asked, arranging her rifle maintenance kit on her desk. 11 days. That was last cycle. Most wash out in 3 or 4. Kes studied Maya with large, unblinking eyes. What makes you different? Maya paused in her unpacking. It was a fair question. She didn't have enhanced biology like the other species. No evolutionary advantages, no genetic modifications, no technological implants. She was just a farm girl who had learned to shoot because her family's livelihood depended on keeping crop-destroying vermin at bay. I don't know if I am different, she said finally, but I've been shooting since I could hold a rifle. Where I come from, if you miss, your family doesn't eat. That evening, Maya made her way to one of the smaller practice ranges to get a feel for the Academy's equipment. The rifles were standard coalition issue, powered by plasma cells and capable of incredible accuracy at extreme ranges. They were far more sophisticated than anything she had used on the farm. She wasn't alone on the range. A group of advanced Vorthan students were practicing at the 2,000 meter markers, their crystalline forms glinting in the artificial light. Maya watched them for a while, studying their technique. They were methodical, each shot preceded by a series of complex calculations that appeared as glowing symbols in their translucent bodies. One of them noticed her watching and approached. You are the human, it said, its voice like wind chimes. I am crystalline pattern of infinite precision. You may call me Crystal. Maya Chen, she replied, extending her hand. Crystal studied the gesture for a moment before carefully mimicking it. I have studied human physiology, Crystal said. Your species is poorly designed for precision shooting. Irregular heartbeat, respiratory interference, inadequate visual processing speed. How do you compensate for these limitations? Maya considered the question. I don't think about them, I guess. I just shoot. Crystal's form shifted slightly, displaying patterns that Maya interpreted as confusion. You do not calculate trajectory, wind speed, gravitational variance, target velocity? Not consciously. I notice the wind and stuff, but I don't do math about it. I just feel where the shot needs to go. Feel? The patterns in Crystal's body grew more agitated. This is not logical. Precision requires calculation. Maybe for you, Maya said. But humans have been hunting successfully for thousands of years without computers. Before Crystal could respond, Instructor Than appeared beside them. Miss Chen, I see you're familiarizing yourself with our equipment. Would you care to demonstrate your abilities for our Vorthan friends? Maya felt the weight of attention as other students stopped their practice to watch. The challenge was clear, and she knew word of whatever happened here would spread throughout the academy before morning.
What range?
She asked, checking the rifle's charge and adjusting the scope. Let's start simple. 800 meters. Standard target. Maya nodded and moved to the firing position. The target was a regulation coalition training disc about the size of a dinner plate. At 800 meters, it looked like a speck even through the scope. She took a moment to feel the weight of the rifle, to understand its balance and characteristics. The other students gathered behind her, their various forms of communication, creating a susurrus of sound. Maya blocked it out, focusing on the target. She could feel the slight breeze coming from the left, could sense the rifle's natural settling point. Her breathing slowed automatically. She didn't calculate wind speed or drop compensation. Instead, she let her instincts guide the adjustment, feeling for the right moment when everything aligned. Her finger tightened on the trigger slowly, steadily, until the rifle fired with a sharp crack. The target disc exploded in a shower of sparks. The range fell silent. Crystal's pattern shifted to what Maya was learning indicated extreme surprise. Even Instructor Thane's usually impassive expression showed a flicker of interest. Lucky shot, muttered one of the Zephyrian students. 1,200 meters, Thane said quietly. New target. Maya adjusted her position and studied the new target. At this distance, it was barely visible even with the scope. She went through the same process, feeling her way to the shot rather than calculating it. The rifle cracked again, and the distant target vanished in another explosion of light. Now the murmuring among the students took on a different tone. Maya heard words like impossible and sensor malfunction in various alien languages. 1,800 meters, Thane commanded, his voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quiet range. Maya had never shot at this distance before. On the farm, the longest shots had been maybe 600 meters when dealing with flying pests. But the principle was the same. Find the target, feel the shot, trust the instinct that had been honed through thousands of hours of practice. She settled into position, controlled her breathing, and let her awareness expand to include the target, the rifle, the environment, and herself as a single system. The shot felt right before she took it, and when the plasma bolt found its mark, she wasn't surprised. The explosion of conversation that followed was deafening. Students were arguing in multiple languages, some claiming equipment malfunction, others demanding to examine Maya's rifle. Crystal approached her, patterns swirling in rapid confusion. "This should not be possible," it said. "You performed no calculations. Your biology should prevent such accuracy. How did you compensate for plasma drift at that range?" "I didn't compensate for anything," Maya replied honestly. "I just aimed where it felt right." Felt? Crystal's patterns shifted to what Maya was beginning to recognize as distress. Precision cannot be achieved through feeling. There are mathematical constants, environmental variables, physical limitations. "That's enough," Instructor Thane interrupted, his silver eyes fixed on Maya with new intensity. "Miss Chen, report to my office at 0800 tomorrow. We need to discuss your training schedule." As the crowd dispersed and the other students returned to their practice, Maya carefully cleaned and stored her rifle. She could feel their stares following her. Hear the whispered conversations about the human, who had just made 3 impossible shots look routine. Kess was waiting when Maya returned to their dormitory. "The entire academy is talking about you," she said. "Some of the instructors are claiming you're using illegal enhancement. Others are saying it was some kind of equipment modification." "It wasn't either of those things," Maya said, sitting on her bunk. "I just shot the way I always shoot. At 1,800 meters? With no calculation?" Kess's reptilian features expressed clear skepticism. "Maya, I've been here for 6 months. I've seen students who were bred for this fail at those distances. What you did tonight should have been impossible." Maya lay back on her bunk and stared at the ceiling. She understood their confusion. From their perspective, precision shooting was a science, governed by mathematical laws and biological limitations. They couldn't comprehend how someone could achieve accuracy through instinct alone. But Maya had grown up in a world where missing meant consequences. When crop-destroying swarms descended on her family's farm, there was no time for calculations. You saw the target, you felt the shot, and you trusted the instincts that had been passed down through generations of human hunters. Tomorrow would bring the formal trials, and Maya knew the challenges would only get harder. The other species would adapt, bringing their full abilities to bear. She would face targets at ranges that pushed even alien capabilities to their limits, under conditions designed to break concentration and shatter confidence. But tonight, for the first time since arriving at the academy, Maya Chen allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, humanity had something to offer after all. Something that couldn't be calculated or programmed or evolved over millennia of genetic refinement. Something uniquely, impossibly human. The preliminary trials began before dawn with a gathering in the Academy's central amphitheater. Maya stood among 47 other candidates, representing 11 different species. The morning air carried the sharp scent of ozone from the plasma ranges and the metallic tang of alien technology. Commandant Vorith, a massive Draknari whose scales bore the scars of countless battles, addressed the assembly. His voice boomed across the amphitheater without amplification, a testament to his species' natural vocal power. "You are here because your respective militaries believe you possess exceptional marksmanship potential," he began, yellow eyes sweeping across the diverse crowd. "Most of you are wrong. These trials will separate those with genuine ability from those who merely believe they possess it." Maya noticed that several of the alien candidates had already begun subtle preparations. The Zephyrians were adjusting their 4 eyes to different focal lengths, creating an effect like looking through multiple scopes simultaneously. The Vorthans were running internal diagnostics, their crystalline forms flickering with calculation streams. The Kalari had entered their meditative states, slowing their metabolism to eliminate physiological interference. "The first trial is distance shooting under standard conditions," Voreth continued. "Ranges from 1,000 to 3,000 meters. Static targets. You will have 3 shots at each range. Miss twice at any distance and you're eliminated." A ripple of tension passed through the candidates. Even among elite marksmen, 3,000 meters was considered an extreme test of ability. Maya had never attempted anything beyond yesterday's 800-meter shots. "You will be called in order of species seniority," the commandant announced. "Kalari first, then Vorthans, Zephyrians, and so on. Humans will shoot last." The ranking wasn't coincidental. In Galactic Coalition military doctrine, species were ranked by their historical contributions to marksmanship excellence. Battalion held the top position, having evolved their abilities over millions of years. Humans, as the newest members, occupied the bottom rank. Maya watched as the first Kalari candidate, an ancient being named Silthara, took position at the 1,000 meter line. The Kalari's movements were fluid and precise, each action economical and purposeful. She entered her trance state, and Maya could see her heartbeat slow to barely perceptible levels. The first shot was perfect, dead center. The second and third followed with mechanical precision. At 1,500 meters, the same flawless performance. At 2,000 meters, still perfect. At 2,500 meters, Silthara hesitated slightly before her first shot, but all three found their marks. The 3,000 target was barely visible even through the advanced scopes. Maya watched Silthara spend nearly 5 minutes in preparation, calculating variables that would affect the shot's trajectory over such an extreme distance. When she finally fired, the first shot struck the target's outer ring. The second hit closer to center. The third was another perfect bullseye. The pattern continued as other Kalari candidates performed. Most passed the trials easily, their evolved abilities giving them significant advantages at extreme distances. A few failed at the 3,000 meter mark, their shots drifting just outside the acceptable tolerance. The Vorthans followed with their characteristic computational approach. Crystal was among the third group to shoot, and Maya watched her friend's body literally calculate the ballistic solutions in real time. Glowing equations appeared and disappeared in her crystalline form as she processed atmospheric conditions, gravitational effects, and target positioning with mathematical precision. Crystal's performance was flawless through 2,500 meters. At 3,000 meters, her first shot struck the target just left of center. Her body immediately recalculated, adjusting for a variable she had initially missed. The second and third shots were perfectly centered. Computational accuracy at its finest, muttered Instructor Thane, who was observing from the instructor platform. The Vorthans never missed the same way twice. The Zephyrians brought their own unique advantages. Their 4-eye system allowed them to track wind patterns, target movement, and scope alignment simultaneously. Maya watched in fascination as one candidate named Kethvar used his multiple visual inputs to compensate for micro-movements in his firing position that would have been undetectable to other species. As the trials progressed, a clear pattern emerged. The biologically advanced species passed with varying degrees of difficulty, while those with fewer evolutionary advantages struggled at the extreme ranges. 3 candidates had already been eliminated, all from species ranked lower in the marksmanship hierarchy. Finally, it was time for the human trials. Maya was one of 4 human candidates, the others being seasoned military snipers with years of formal training. Captain Rodriguez from Earth's Marine Corps went first, his movements crisp with military precision. Rodriguez performed well through 2,000 meters, his shots grouping tightly around the target centers. At 2,500 meters, he began to struggle, his third shot barely catching the target's edge. At 3,000 meters, his first shot missed entirely, striking the target frame. His second shot hit the outer ring, but his third missed by a wide margin. Eliminated. The second human, Sergeant Park from the Colonial Defense Force, fared slightly better but still failed at 3,000 meters, when 2 of her 3 shots missed completely. The third human, Lieutenant Morrison, didn't even make it past the 2,500-meter mark. Maya felt the weight of every eye in the amphitheater as she approached the firing line. She was humanity's last hope in these trials, and everyone present knew that humans had never passed the preliminary testing. The pressure should have been overwhelming, but Maya found herself drawing on memories of early morning hunts on her family's farm, when the family's economic survival depended on her ability to protect their crops. At 1,000 meters, Maya settled into her firing position and immediately felt the difference between this environment and the previous night's informal practice. The formal trial setup included monitoring equipment that tracked everything from her heart rate to the micro-movements of her trigger finger. Alien eyes watched her every action, looking for signs of enhancement or illegal modification. She ignored the scrutiny and focused on the target. The wind was light and variable, coming from multiple directions as air currents swirled around the mountain facility. Most shooters would try to wait for a consistent wind pattern, but Maya had learned long ago that perfect conditions rarely existed in real situations. Her first shot felt right the moment she squeezed the trigger. The target exploded in a shower of sparks. The second and third shots followed with equal precision, each finding the center ring. At 1,500 meters, Maya noticed the alien observers leaning forward with increased interest. She went through the same process, feeling for the shot rather than calculating it. 3 more perfect hits. The murmur of conversation among the observers grew louder as Maya moved to the 2,000 meter line. At this distance, the environmental factors became much more significant. The slightest breeze could push a shot off target, and the gravitational variations of Kepler Prime created subtle effects that most species had to consciously compensate for. Maya didn't compensate consciously. Instead, she let her instincts integrate all the variables into a single feeling, a sense of where the shot needed to go. 3 more hits, all within the inner ring. At 2,500 meters, something changed in the atmosphere among the observers. The casual murmuring stopped, replaced by focused attention. Maya could feel the intensity of their concentration, but she couldn't let it affect her shooting. This distance was beyond anything she had attempted even during yesterday's unexpected demonstration. She settled into position and extended her awareness to include the target, barely visible even through the scope. The wind had picked up slightly, creating complex patterns that shifted every few seconds. Maya waited, not for perfect conditions, but for the moment when she could feel the path her shot needed to take through all the variables. The first shot struck just left of center. Maya didn't let herself overthink the adjustment, trusting her instincts to incorporate the new information. The second shot was closer to center. The third was dead center. The silence that followed was absolute. Maya could hear her own heartbeat, could sense the collective breath-holding of the observers. At 3,000 meters, only the most elite marksmen of the most advanced species typically succeeded. Commandant Voreth's voice carried clearly across the range. Final distance, 3,000 meters. 3 shots. Maya approached the final firing position with steady steps. The target at this distance was a theoretical dot, visible only as a slight disruption in the scope's field of view. The environmental variables at this range weren't just challenging, they were chaotic. Atmospheric layers created different wind conditions at different heights along the shot's trajectory. Gravitational effects from Kepler Prime's 2 small moons created subtle but measurable influence on projectile paths. Even the rotation of the planet beneath the target had to be considered for shots at this extreme distance. Maya settled into position and immediately realized that her intuitive approach would have to evolve. At 3,000 meters, the variables were too complex for unconscious integration. She would have to find a way to blend her instinctive shooting with conscious awareness of the factors affecting her shots. She spent longer in preparation than she had at any previous distance, not calculating in the mathematical sense that the alien species used, but allowing herself to become aware of all the forces acting on her potential shot, the wind patterns at different altitudes, the gravitational pulls, the minute vibrations in the platform beneath her, the slight movement of the target frame in response to thermal expansion. When she finally took her first shot, it felt different from any she had taken before. Instead of the pure instinctive approach she had always relied on, this shot represented a fusion of human intuition and conscious awareness. The result struck the target's outer ring. The miss would have been devastating to most shooters at this level, but Maya found herself oddly encouraged. She had hit the target at 3,000 meters, even if not perfectly. More importantly, she understood what had happened and how to adjust. Her second shot incorporated the lessons from the first. She let her instincts guide the basic trajectory while consciously accounting for the variables her unconscious mind couldn't fully process. The shot struck the inner ring. For her third shot, Maya achieved something she had never experienced before. The fusion of instinct and consciousness became complete, creating a state where she wasn't thinking about the shot or feeling for it, but simply knowing where it needed to go. The plasma bolt crossed 3,000 meters of chaotic space and struck dead center. The explosion that followed wasn't just from the target. The amphitheater erupted in stunned exclamations from dozens of alien species. Maya heard words like impossible and unprecedented in languages she couldn't identify. Several of the Vorthan observers were running rapid diagnostic sequences, their bodies flickering with computational activity as they tried to understand what they had just witnessed. Commandant Voreth approached Maya as she secured her rifle. His scarred features showed an expression she couldn't interpret, but his voice carried a note of respect that hadn't been there before. "Miss Chen," he said, loud enough for all the observers to hear, "congratulations! You have passed the preliminary trials with the highest score achieved by any species in the past 5 years." The statement sent another ripple of shock through the assembled aliens. Maya felt a moment of disorientation. Surely he was exaggerating for effect. "Furthermore," Voreth continued, "your 3,000-meter performance has qualified you for immediate advancement to the extreme range trials normally reserved for final year students. This announcement created actual chaos among the observers. Several Kalari instructors began rapid conversations in their musical language, while a group of Vorthan academics started projecting complex analyses into the air above their crystalline forms. Crystal approached Maya as the crowd began to disperse. "Maya," she said, her patterns showing deep confusion, "what you have done should not be possible. I have run computational analyses of your shots, accounting for every environmental variable, and your success rate exceeds mathematical probability." "Maybe mathematics isn't everything," Maya replied gently. "But it must be," Crystal insisted. "Precision shooting is governed by physical laws, trajectory calculation, environmental compensation, biological limitations. These are constants that cannot be ignored." Maya looked at her alien friend, trying to find a way to explain something she didn't fully understand herself. What if there are other constants? Things that can't be calculated but are still real. Before Crystal could respond, Instructor Thane appeared beside them. "Miss Chen, the Commandant wants to see you immediately. It seems your performance has attracted attention from some very high-ranking coalition officials." As Maya followed Thane toward the administration building, she caught fragments of excited conversations among the alien students and instructors. Words like paradigm shift and fundamental assumptions were being thrown around with increasing frequency. Maya realized that her success hadn't just advanced her own position at the Academy. It had challenged the basic assumptions that govern galactic understanding of marksmanship excellence. The species that had built their entire martial culture around biological advantages and computational precision, the idea that raw human instinct could achieve superior results was profoundly disturbing. But disturbing or not, the results spoke for themselves. Maya Chen, a farm girl from Earth's agricultural colonies, had just outperformed the most elite marksmen in the galaxy using nothing but the hunting instincts that had been passed down through generations of human ancestors. The implications of that achievement were about to ripple throughout the Galactic Coalition in ways that none of them could yet imagine. The Commandant's office occupied the highest level of the Academy's command tower, offering a panoramic view of the shooting ranges stretching across the valley below. Maya found herself seated across from not just Vorith, but also Admiral Kesthara, the Kalari who served as the Coalition's chief of marksmanship operations, and General Thexmar, a Vorthan whose crystalline form pulsed with rapid data streams. "Miss Chen," Admiral Kesthara began, her melodious voice carrying the weight of authority, "your performance today has created what you humans might call a problem." Maya remained silent, sensing that this conversation would determine far more than just her future at the Academy. General Thexmar's form shifted to display a series of complex equations. "We have analyzed the environmental conditions during your final shots. Wind patterns, gravitational variations, atmospheric density, target movement, platform vibration, 17 major variables and 43 minor ones. The probability of achieving your level of accuracy without computational assistance is approximately 1 in 47 million. Yet you achieved it," the Admiral continued, "3 times in succession. Either you possess some form of enhancement that our scanners cannot detect, or human marksmanship capability has been fundamentally underestimated by Coalition military doctrine." Commandant Voreth leaned forward in his chair. "The implications extend beyond this Academy, Miss Chen. If humans can achieve superior marksmanship performance without the biological advantages other species rely upon, it challenges our entire understanding of combat effectiveness assessment." Maya finally spoke. "I don't understand what you're suggesting. I'm just a farm girl who learned to shoot. I'm not enhanced or modified or special in any way."
"That," Admiral Kesthara said softly, "is precisely what makes this so significant." The Admiral stood and moved to the window overlooking the ranges.
"For 2,000 years, the Coalition has operated on the principle that marksmanship excellence correlates directly with biological advantage."
The Kalari evolved perfect hand-eye coordination. The Vorthans developed computational processing abilities. The Zephyrians gained multi-visual targeting systems. Humans were ranked at the bottom because they possessed none of these advantages.
But what if? General Thexmar interjected, his form flickering with rapid calculations. Human evolution took a different path. What if, instead of developing specific biological enhancements, humans developed something more fundamental?
Maya felt increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation.
"I really don't think I'm anything special. Where I come from, lots of people can shoot like this." The 3 senior officers exchanged glances that Maya couldn't interpret. "Miss Chen," Commandant Forath said carefully, "how many humans on your colony could make shots like you demonstrated today?" Maya considered the question. "Well, the hunting guides could all shoot at least as well as I can. Probably better. My cousin Jake can hit moving targets at ranges I've never even attempted.
And the security teams that deal with the really dangerous predators. She trailed off, noticing the increasingly stunned expressions on the aliens' faces.
How many humans are we talking about? Admiral Kesthera asked quietly.
On my colony? Maybe a couple hundred who shoot regularly. But that's just one colony out of thousands. And we're not even considered particularly good shots compared to the frontier worlds or the deep space stations where people have to deal with really dangerous situations.
The silence that followed stretched uncomfortably long. General Faxmar's computational processes were running so rapidly that his crystalline form was strobing like a strobe light cobmate.
Miss Chen, Admiral Kesthara said finally, the performance you demonstrated today would qualify you for the elite sniper corps of any coalition military. You've just told us that hundreds of humans on a single agricultural colony could match or exceed that performance. Thousands of colonies, the general added, his voice barely a whisper. Millions of potential marksmen of unprecedented ability. Maya began to understand why they seemed so disturbed.
You're saying we didn't know humans could shoot this well? We're saying, Commandant Voreth replied grimly, that if your assessment is accurate, humanity may possess the largest pool of elite marksmanship talent in the galaxy. And we've been treating you as the least capable species.
Before Maya could respond, an urgent chime indicated an incoming priority communication. Admiral Kesthara activated the holographic display, revealing the image of Fleet Commander Zeranis, the highest-ranking military officer in the Coalition.
Admiral, the commander's voice was tense. I need an immediate assessment of the human candidate's capabilities. We have a developing situation that may require unprecedented marksmanship skills.
What kind of situation? Admiral Kesthara asked. The hegemony has established a forward observation post on asteroid mining station 774.
Intelligence indicates they're using it to target our supply convoys.
The post is positioned at extreme range from any possible approach vector, approximately 3,700 meters from the nearest feasible firing position. Maya felt her stomach drop. The hegemony was the Coalition's primary enemy, a confederation of aggressive species that sought to expand their territory through military conquest. Their conflicts with the Coalition had been escalating for months. Our best Kalari marksmen estimate a 12% probability of successful elimination at that range, the fleet commander continued. Vorthan computational analysis suggests the environmental variables make the shot nearly impossible. We're considering a full assault on the station, but casualties would be enormous. Admiral Kesthara glanced at Maya. Commander, we may have an alternative. The human candidate has just demonstrated successful shots at 3,000 meters under challenging conditions. Human? The commander's image flickered with surprise. Admiral, I need certainty, not experiments. Hundreds of Coalition lives hang in the balance. Understood. Give us 48 hours to conduct extended-range trials. If the human can demonstrate capability at 3,700 meters, we'll have your marksman. The communication ended, leaving the room in heavy silence. Maya realized that what had begun as academic trials had suddenly become a matter of life and death for Coalition forces facing an impossible tactical situation. Miss Chen, Admiral Kesthara said, I'm going to be completely honest with you. What we're asking exceeds anything that has ever been attempted at this academy. The longest successful shot in Coalition military history is 3,400 meters, achieved by Master Sniper Veltar during the siege of Proxima Station. 3,700 meters, General Thexmar added, represents the theoretical limit of plasma rifle accuracy under optimal conditions. The environmental variables alone should make the shot impossible. Maya found herself thinking not about the impossibility of the challenge, but about the Coalition soldiers who would die if she failed. What happens if I miss? What's the backup plan? Direct assault on the mining station, Commandant Voreth replied. Intelligence estimates suggest we'd lose at least 60% of the assault force. The hegemony has fortified the position extensively. Maya stood and moved to the window, looking out at the ranges where alien marksmen were still practicing. In the distance, she could see the extreme range targets that pushed even the most advanced species to their limits. Beyond those, barely visible in the afternoon haze, were the theoretical limits of the facility's capabilities. I need to know something, she said without turning around. Are you asking me to attempt this shot because you believe I can make it, or because you're out of options? Both, Admiral Kesthara admitted. Your performance today suggests capabilities we didn't know humans possessed. But you're correct that we're also facing an impossible situation through conventional approaches. Maya turned back to face the assembled officers. What would you need me to demonstrate? Consistent accuracy at ranges extending to 3,700 meters, General Thexmar replied immediately. Under various environmental conditions. With moving targets. Under stress. How long do I have? 48 hours, the Admiral said. If you can demonstrate the capability, you'll be deployed immediately to the combat zone. Maya felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. She thought about the Coalition soldiers who were depending on an impossible shot, about the human colonists whose safety might depend on the outcome of this conflict, about the farming community that had taught her that missing wasn't an option when survival was at stake. I'll need access to the extreme range facilities, she said finally. And I want to understand exactly what conditions I'll be facing in the real situation. Commandant Voreth nodded grimly. I'll have the range prepared immediately. Miss Chen, I want you to understand the magnitude of what you're attempting. We're asking you to push beyond the theoretical limits of Coalition marksmanship. Even our best specialists consider this shot impossible. Maybe that's the problem, Maya replied. Maybe you've been thinking about what's impossible instead of what's necessary. As the meeting concluded and Maya prepared to leave, Admiral Kestera called her back. Miss Chen, one more thing. If you succeed in demonstrating this capability, everything changes. For humans, for the Coalition, for how we understand warfare itself. Are you prepared for that kind of responsibility? Maya considered the question seriously. She thought about her family's farm, about the quiet life she had left behind to join the Coalition military. She thought about the alien species who had dominated galactic military doctrine for millennia through their biological advantages. And she thought about the human hunters, farmers, and frontiersmen who had never doubted that hitting their target was simply a matter of necessity. Admiral, she said finally, where I come from, responsibility isn't about changing the galaxy. It's about protecting the people who count on you. If I can make this shot, and it saves Coalition lives, then that's what I'll do. As Maya left the command tower, she passed through the Academy's central courtyard where groups of alien students were engaged in heated discussions. She caught fragments of conversation in multiple languages, all centered around the same theme, the impossible human who had shattered their understanding of marksmanship excellence. Kess was waiting for her at the dormitory entrance. Maya, the entire Academy is talking about your meeting with the senior staff. They're saying you might be deployed on a combat mission. Is it true? Maybe, Maya replied, not wanting to share details of what was obviously classified information. Maya, you've been here for 2 days. Most students train for years before they're considered for field deployment. What's happening here? Maya looked at her Draknari roommate, trying to find words for something she was only beginning to understand herself. I think maybe humans are better at this than anyone realized, including humans. That evening, Maya made her way to the Extreme Range facility, a specialized complex built into a natural canyon that extended for over 5 kilometers. The ranges here were reserved for advanced students and instructor demonstrations, far beyond the capabilities expected of new recruits. She wasn't alone. Word of her challenge had spread through the Academy's informal networks, and dozens of students and instructors had gathered to observe. The crowd included not just curious onlookers, but some of the most respected marksmanship experts in the galaxy. Master Sniper Veltar, the Kalari whose 400-meter record Maya would need to exceed, stood among the observers. His presence added weight to the gathering. Veltar was legendary throughout the Coalition military, and his opinions on marksmanship carried enormous influence. Instructor Thane approached Maya as she prepared her equipment. Miss Chen, Master Veltar has requested permission to observe your trials. He rarely attends Academy functions. Maya nodded to the legendary marksman, noting the intense focus in his silver eyes. Veltar's presence meant that her performance would be analyzed by the most skilled practitioner of long-range shooting in Coalition history. As Maya began her preparation for the extreme range trials, she realized that the next 48 hours would determine not just whether she could save Coalition lives, but whether humanity's role in galactic military doctrine would be fundamentally redefined. The shooting she was about to attempt would push her beyond anything she had ever imagined, into territory where even the most optimistic assessments suggested failure was almost certain. But as Maya settled into her first firing position and looked out toward targets that existed at the very edge of possibility, she found herself drawing on something that no amount of biological enhancement or computational processing could replicate. The absolute certainty that when lives depended on making an impossible shot, humans found a way to make it. The Extreme Range facility buzzed with unprecedented activity. as word of Maya's trials spread beyond the Academy. By the second day, the observation gallery included not just Academy personnel, but military officials from 6 different coalition species, scientific researchers studying ballistics and human physiology, and even diplomatic observers whose presence suggested the political implications of Maya's shooting had reached the highest levels of galactic government. Maya tried to block out the pressure as she prepared for her final qualification attempts. The past 36 hours had been a whirlwind of increasingly difficult challenges, each one designed to test different aspects of extreme range marksmanship. She had started at 3,200 meters, pushing beyond her previous best by 200 meters. The shot had required everything she had learned about fusing instinct with conscious awareness, but she had managed consistent hits on static targets. The alien observers had watched in stunned silence as Maya achieved accuracy that their mathematical models suggested was impossible for human biology. At 3,400 meters, Maya had equaled Master Veltar's legendary record. The achievement should have been cause for celebration, but Maya knew it was only the beginning. The real mission required an additional 300 meters of range, a distance that represented uncharted territory for any species. The 500-meter trials had introduced environmental complications designed to simulate real combat conditions, variable winds, thermal disturbances from the facility's power systems, and subtle gravitational anomalies created by Kepler Prime's orbital mechanics. Maya had struggled initially, her shots grouping around the target but not achieving the center mass hits required for mission success. But something remarkable had happened during those trials. Maya's fusion of instinct and conscious awareness had evolved into something entirely new, a state where she wasn't just compensating for environmental variables, but actually utilizing them as part of her shooting process. Instead of fighting the wind patterns, she learned to ride them. Instead of calculating gravitational effects, she felt them as part of the shot's natural trajectory. Master Veltar had requested a private conversation after witnessing Maya's adaptation. The legendary Kalari marksman had studied her technique with the focused intensity of someone whose entire worldview was being challenged. "Miss Chen," he had said, his melodious voice carrying undertones of confusion and respect, "I have spent 4 centuries perfecting the art of extreme range shooting. I have studied under the greatest masters, utilized the most advanced technology, and pushed my evolved capabilities to their absolute limits." Maya had waited respectfully for him to continue. "What you are doing should not be possible," Veltar continued. "You lack the biological enhancements that enable precision shooting. You have no computational assistance. You are working with neural reflexes that evolved for hunting primitive animals, not engaging targets at ranges where plasma drift becomes a significant factor. Yet somehow," he had paused, studying Maya with ancient eyes, "you are achieving results that exceed my own capabilities. How?" Maya had struggled to explain something she didn't fully understand herself. "I think maybe humans evolved differently than other species assume. Maybe instead of developing specific advantages, we developed adaptability, the ability to solve problems that don't have obvious solutions." Adaptability, Veltar had mused. "Yes, I have heard this theory about human evolution, but adaptability should not enable you to compensate for mathematical constants." "What if they're not as constant as we think?" Maya had replied. "What if there are variables in shooting that can't be calculated but can still be influenced?" Now, as Maya prepared for the final 700-meter trial, Veltar's words echoed in her mind. The target at this distance wasn't just at the edge of possibility. It was beyond the edge, in territory where even theoretical physics suggested accuracy should be impossible. The environmental conditions for the final trial had been designed to match the real combat situation as closely as possible. Intelligence reports on asteroid mining station 774 indicated complex gravitational fields created by the facility's massive ore processing equipment. Thermal disturbances from industrial operations created unpredictable air current patterns. The hegemony observation post was positioned to maximize these environmental challenges for any potential marksman. Maya settled into her firing position and extended her awareness toward the distant target. At 3,700 meters, even the advanced scope system struggled to provide clear resolution. The target appeared as little more than a heat signature, distinguishable from its surroundings only by subtle differences in thermal output. But as Maya studied the target through her scope, something unexpected happened. Her awareness expanded beyond the target itself to encompass the entire environment between her position and the objective. She began to sense the gravitational fields not as obstacles to be overcome, but as rivers that her shot could navigate. The thermal disturbances became currents that could carry her plasma bolt along optimized trajectories. For the first time since beginning these trials, Maya felt completely confident about a shot before taking it. The rifle's discharge echoed across the canyon with sharp authority. Through the scope, Maya watched her plasma bolt traverse the vast distance, riding gravitational currents and thermal streams with impossible precision. The target erupted in a brilliant explosion that sent echoes bouncing off the canyon walls. The silence that followed was absolute. Maya could hear her own heartbeat, could sense the collective breath-holding of every observer in the facility. She had just achieved something that violated fundamental assumptions about ballistic physics. But the mission requirement wasn't a single lucky shot. It was consistent, reliable accuracy under combat conditions. Maya settled back into position for her second attempt. This shot felt different, not because the environmental conditions had changed, but because Maya's understanding had evolved further. She wasn't just riding the environmental variables anymore. She was actively collaborating with them, using the complex interplay of forces to guide her shot with precision that transcended normal ballistic calculations. The second explosion confirmed what the first had suggested. Maya had achieved a level of marksmanship that existed beyond conventional understanding. Her third shot was taken with complete certainty. Maya no longer doubted her ability to hit the target. She was simply confirming the repeatability of her new technique. When the third explosion lit up the distant target area, the observation gallery erupted in chaos. Admiral Kestara was the first to approach Maya as she secured her rifle. The Kalari's usually composed demeanor showed cracks of amazement and disbelief. "Miss Chen," she said, her voice barely steady, "you have just demonstrated capabilities that our best theoretical physicists consider impossible. 3 consecutive hits at a range that exceeds the mathematical limits of plasma rifle accuracy." General Thexmar's crystalline form was strobing with computational activity so rapid it was almost blinding. "I am running continuous analyses of the environmental conditions during your shots," he announced. "According to every ballistic model in Coalition databases, your plasma bolts should have dispersed completely before reaching the target. The energy density required to maintain coherence at that range exceeds the output capabilities of standard-issue weapons." Maya realized that her success had created a problem almost as significant as her original challenge. She had achieved the impossible, but in doing so she had violated physical laws that formed the foundation of Coalition military science. "There's something else," Instructor Thane added, consulting his diagnostic equipment. "Miss Chen, your heart rate and neural activity during those shots were completely inconsistent with extreme stress responses. You were calmer during the 3 700-meter shots than most students are during basic target practice." Master Veltar stepped forward, his ancient features showing an expression Maya couldn't interpret. "Miss Chen, in 4 centuries of marksmanship study, I have never witnessed anything comparable to what you have just achieved. You have not simply exceeded existing records. You have demonstrated capabilities that challenge our understanding of what is physically possible." Before Maya could respond, urgent alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Admiral Kestara received an immediate priority communication that appeared as a holographic projection visible to all observers. Fleet Commander Zoranis materialized in the display, his features grim with urgency. "Admiral, the hegemony has accelerated their timeline. Intelligence indicates they plan to begin targeting our supply convoys within 12 hours. We need that marksman deployed immediately. Miss Chen has successfully demonstrated the required capabilities," the Admiral reported. 3 consecutive hits at 3,700 meters under combat simulation conditions. The Fleet Commander's image flickered with surprise. "Confirmed successful hits? At that range?" "Confirmed. The human candidate has achieved consistent accuracy that exceeds our best theoretical projections." "Deploy her immediately. The transport ship Valiant Dawn is already en route to your location. Ms. Chen will be accompanied by a full tactical support team and our best intelligence analysts." As the communication ended, Maya felt the reality of her situation settling fully into place. In less than 6 hours, she would be aboard a Coalition warship, heading toward a combat zone, where hundreds of lives depended on her ability to make a shot that everyone agreed was impossible. But as the preparations for her deployment began, Maya realized that something fundamental had shifted in her understanding of marksmanship. The techniques she had developed during these trials weren't just personal achievements, they represented a completely new approach to precision shooting that could revolutionize Coalition military capabilities. Admiral Kestara approached Maya as the observation gallery cleared, and technical teams began preparing her equipment for combat deployment. "Miss Chen, I want you to understand what you've accomplished here," she said.
You haven't just qualified for this mission, you've potentially discovered new principles of ballistic science that could change warfare throughout the galaxy. I don't think I discovered anything new, Maya replied honestly. I think I just applied human hunting instincts to alien technology.
Maybe the combination creates possibilities that neither approach could achieve alone. Perhaps, the Admiral mused. But whatever the explanation, you've demonstrated that human potential in this field has been catastrophically underestimated. When this mission is complete, we'll need to completely reassess humanity's role in coalition military doctrine. As Maya gathered her equipment and prepared for combat deployment, she caught sight of Crystal among the dispersing observers. Her Vorthan friend's crystalline form was displaying patterns Maya had never seen before, complex equations interspersed with what appeared to be question marks. Maya, Crystal said as she approached, I have run every computational analysis in my databanks. What you achieved today should not be mathematically possible. How can I reconcile observed reality with theoretical limitations? Maya smiled at her friend, remembering their early conversations about the importance of mathematical precision in marksmanship. Maybe, she said gently, some things are bigger than mathematics. Crystal's patterns shifted to display what Maya was learning to recognize as computational overload. For a species whose entire worldview was built on mathematical certainty, Maya's achievements represented a fundamental challenge to everything they believed about reality. As Maya prepared to leave the academy for her first combat deployment, she reflected on how completely her life had changed in just a few days. She had arrived as an unknown recruit from humanity's lowest-ranked military contribution. She was leaving as the most capable marksman in Coalition history, carrying equipment and techniques that could reshape galactic warfare. But more importantly, she was leaving with a new understanding of what humanity could contribute to the galaxy. Not just individual achievement, but a completely different way of approaching problems that other species considered impossible. The transport ship Valiant Dawn would arrive within hours, carrying Maya toward a confrontation that would test everything she had learned about pushing beyond the limits of possibility. And somewhere in the depths of space, hegemony forces were preparing to discover that their carefully calculated defensive positions might not be as impregnable as they believed. The Valiant Dawn dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler-7 system, with the silent grace of a predator approaching its prey. Maya felt the subtle shift in artificial gravity that marked their transition to normal space, followed by the low hum of the ship's active scanning systems beginning their survey of the target area. She stood in the tactical planning chamber alongside the mission's command team, Commander Sarah Mitchell, a veteran human officer who would coordinate the operation, Lieutenant Zexhay, a Draknari intelligence specialist whose expertise on hegemony tactics was unmatched, and Master Sergeant Torres, a grizzled human marine who had volunteered to serve as Maya's spotter, despite having no formal experience with extreme range shooting. The holographic display in the chamber's center showed a detailed three-dimensional map of asteroid mining station 774. The facility was a massive industrial complex built into a hollowed-out asteroid, its surface bristling with processing equipment, defensive installations, and communication arrays. The hegemony observation post was clearly marked, a fortified position at the station's highest point, offering commanding views of all approach vectors. Intelligence confirms the target is still active, Lieutenant Zexhay reported, his reptilian features grim with concentration. The observation post has been tracking our supply convoys for the past 72 hours. They're feeding targeting data to hegemony attack squadrons positioned in the outer system. Commander Mitchell manipulated the holographic display to show the firing position that had been selected for Maya's mission. The Coalition had managed to insert a small reconnaissance team onto a neighboring asteroid, establishing an observation post of their own at precisely the range Maya had trained for. 3,700 meters, the commander said, highlighting the line of sight between the two positions. The trajectory passes through a complex gravitational field created by the mining station's ore processing equipment. Thermal disturbances from industrial operations create additional variables, and intelligence suggests the hegemony has positioned sensor equipment specifically to detect incoming fire. Maya studied the tactical display with growing focus. The environmental conditions were even more challenging than the simulated scenarios she had trained on, but something about the complexity felt familiar. During her trials at the academy, she had learned that chaotic environmental conditions weren't necessarily obstacles. They could become tools if approached correctly. "What's the timeline?" she asked. 6 hours, Lieutenant Zexhay replied. Our reconnaissance team reports that the hegemony post follows a predictable rotation schedule. The primary observer will be in position at 1400 local time, providing the best target opportunity. Master Sergeant Torres, who had been quietly studying the tactical data, spoke up for the first time.
Miss Chen, I've been reviewing your training reports from the Academy. The techniques you used aren't in any manual I've seen. How do you want to handle the spotting coordination? Maya considered the question carefully. Traditional sniper-spotter relationships relied on detailed communication about environmental conditions, target movement, and ballistic calculations.
But her shooting approach had evolved beyond conventional frameworks. "I'll need you to monitor the overall tactical situation," she said finally. "Watch for changes in the target's position, incoming threats, anything that might affect the mission. But for the actual shot, I'll need to work independently." Torres nodded, though his expression suggested some uncertainty about departing from established protocols. The transit to the firing position took 4 hours aboard a stealth reconnaissance craft designed to avoid detection by hegemony sensors. Maya used the time to study detailed intelligence reports about her target and the facility's defensive capabilities. The hegemony observer was identified as Senior Tactician Vorthak, a member of the aggressive hegemony Dominion species whose four-armed physiology and enhanced neural processing made him an exceptional military analyst. Vorthak had been responsible for coordinating attacks that had destroyed 3 coalition supply convoys in the past month, killing over 200 coalition personnel. More importantly, intelligence indicated that Vorthak was using the observation post to identify patterns in coalition logistics that could enable much larger attacks. His elimination wouldn't just save the current convoy, it would disrupt hegemony operations throughout the sector. The reconnaissance craft delivered Maya and her support team to their firing position without incident. The location was a carefully prepared hide built into the surface of a small asteroid, designed to provide concealment while offering clear lines of sight to the target facility. Maya's first look at the actual target area through her scope confirmed the intelligence report's accuracy, while revealing additional complications. The gravitational disturbances were more complex than anticipated, creating what appeared to be shifting fields that would affect projectile trajectories in unpredictable ways. Thermal disturbances from the mining facility created visible heat shimmer even at this extreme range. Most challenging of all, the target position was partially obscured by industrial equipment that moved in regular patterns as part of the facility's operations. Maya would have a clear shot only during brief windows when the equipment cycles aligned properly. Range confirmed at 3,697 meters. Master Sergeant Torres reported through their communication link. Environmental conditions are challenging. Maya settled into a firing position and began the process of extending her awareness toward the target. At this distance, with these conditions, conventional marksmanship approaches would be completely inadequate. She would need to utilize the advanced techniques she had developed during her trials, pushing them even further to accommodate the additional complications. As Maya studied the target area, she began to sense something she hadn't expected. The gravitational fields created by the mining equipment weren't random. They followed patterns created by the facility's operational cycles. The thermal disturbances were similarly predictable, rising and falling with industrial processes that maintained steady schedules. Instead of chaotic variables that would make the shot impossible, Maya realized she was looking at complex but predictable environmental conditions that could actually assist her shot if properly utilized.
Contact! Lieutenant Zexhay's voice crackled through the communication system.
Target is moving into position. Estimated 2 minutes until optimal window. Maya watched through her scope as Senior Tactician Vorthak took his position in the observation post. The hegemony officer's four-armed form was clearly visible as he began adjusting sensor equipment for optimal tracking of the approaching coalition convoy. Maya began her final preparation, extending her awareness to encompass not just the target, but the entire environment between her position and the objective. The gravitational fields became rivers she could navigate. The thermal disturbances became currents that could carry her shot. The moving industrial equipment became timing markers that would help her coordinate with the environmental patterns. Optimal window in 30 seconds, Torres reported. Maya's awareness reached a state she had never achieved before. She wasn't just collaborating with the environmental conditions. She was becoming part of them, integrating her shot into the natural rhythms of space and energy that connected her position to the target. Window open, Torres announced. Maya squeezed the trigger with absolute certainty. The plasma bolt left her rifle and began its long journey through space, riding gravitational currents and thermal streams with precision that transcended conventional ballistic science. Maya tracked its progress through her scope, watching as it navigated the complex environmental challenges with impossible accuracy. At 3,697 meters, after a flight time of nearly 3 seconds, the plasma bolt found senior tactician Vorthak with lethal precision. The observation post erupted in brilliant light as secondary explosions destroyed the facility's sensor equipment. Target eliminated, Torres confirmed, his voice carrying undertones of amazement. Secondary objectives achieved, sensor array destroyed. But Maya wasn't finished. Through her scope, she could see hegemony personnel responding to the attack, rushing toward defensive positions that would allow them to identify her firing location. The mission parameters had anticipated this response, and Maya had been authorized to engage secondary targets if the opportunity arose. 2 hegemony tactical officers emerged from the facility's interior, moving toward communication equipment that would allow them to coordinate a counterattack. Maya's awareness was still integrated with the environmental conditions around the mining facility, and she could sense the optimal trajectories for engaging these new targets. Her second and third shots followed in rapid succession, each one riding the gravitational and thermal currents with devastating precision. Both tactical officers were eliminated before they could reach their equipment, leaving the hegemony post completely incapacitated. Multiple secondary targets eliminated, Torres reported. Hegemony response capability neutralized. Commander Mitchell's voice crackled through the communication system from the command vessel. Outstanding performance, Valiant Dawn team. Intelligence reports confirm the convoy threat has been eliminated. You are cleared for immediate extraction. As the reconnaissance craft retrieved Maya's team from their firing position, Master Sergeant Torres approached her with an expression of bewildered respect. Miss Chen, he said quietly, I've been in the military for 23 years. I've worked with snipers from 8 different species, including some of the most elite marksmen in Coalition service. What you just did doesn't match anything in my experience. How so? Maya asked, as she secured her equipment. 3 shots at nearly 3,700 meters, under conditions that should have made accuracy impossible, against targets that were only visible for seconds at a time, and you made it look routine. Maya considered his observation as the reconnaissance craft began its transit back to the Valiant Dawn. Maybe it was routine. Maybe humans have been making impossible shots for so long that we forgot they were supposed to be impossible. The return journey to Coalition space provided time for Maya to reflect on what had happened during the mission. She had successfully eliminated multiple targets at record-breaking range, but more importantly, she had demonstrated that human marksmanship capabilities represented something entirely new in galactic military science. The techniques she had developed weren't just personal achievements. They were reproducible approaches that could be taught to other human marksmen. If her experience at the agricultural colony was representative, there might be thousands of humans throughout Coalition space who could learn to shoot with similar precision. Admiral Kestara met Maya personally when the Valiant Dawn returned to Coalition headquarters. The Kalari's expression combined respect with something approaching awe. Miss Chen, she said as Maya disembarked, your mission success has been reported to the highest levels of Coalition command. The hegemony observation post has been completely neutralized, and intelligence indicates their coordinated convoy attacks have been disrupted. More importantly, the Admiral continued, your demonstrated capabilities have led to a complete reassessment of human military potential. The Coalition Council has authorized the establishment of a new human marksmanship development program, with you as its director. Maya felt a moment of disorientation. Director, Admiral, I'm barely out of basic training. Miss Chen, you have achieved marksmanship performance that exceeds our most advanced theoretical models. You've demonstrated techniques that could revolutionize Coalition military capabilities. Who else would be qualified to lead this program? As Maya considered the Admiral's words, she realized that her journey from farm girl to galactic military specialist had reached another turning point. The program would mean working with human marksmen from throughout Coalition space, developing training protocols that could unlock capabilities that had been dormant in her species. But more than that, it would mean changing how the galaxy understood humanity's role in the greater community of species. For too long, humans had been seen as the least capable members of the Coalition, valued only for their numerical strength and willingness to take risks. Maya's achievements had proven that human capabilities had been fundamentally misunderstood, not because humans possessed biological advantages comparable to other species, but because they had evolved something different, an adaptability and intuitive problem-solving ability that could overcome challenges that defeated more specialized approaches. 3 months later, Maya stood on the observation deck of the Human Marksmanship Training Facility, watching as the latest group of recruits completed their extreme range qualifications. The facility had been built on humanity's frontier colony of New Montana, where environmental conditions provided natural training challenges similar to those Maya had faced during her trials. The recruits included farmers, hunters, frontier security officers, and military personnel from dozens of human colonies. All of them had demonstrated the basic aptitudes that Maya's research had identified as indicators of extreme range shooting potential. To the amazement of coalition military scientists, over 60% of the human candidates had successfully qualified for shots exceeding 3,000 meters. 12 had achieved accuracy comparable to Maya's original record-breaking performance. And 3 had actually exceeded her academy trials, achieving consistent hits at ranges approaching 4,000 meters. Crystal approached Maya as she watched the training progress. Her Vorthan friend had requested assignment to the facility's research team, driven by scientific curiosity about techniques that violated her understanding of mathematical certainty.
Maya, she said, her patterns displaying continued confusion mixed with fascination. I have spent months studying human marksmanship techniques.
I have analyzed thousands of shots, interviewed dozens of successful marksmen, and run computational models using every theoretical framework in coalition databases. And, Maya asked, sensing that Crystal was approaching some kind of conclusion. I believe I finally understand what makes human shooting technique unique, Crystal continued. Other species have evolved specific biological advantages, enhanced eyesight, computational processing, perfect coordination. But humans evolved something much more fundamental, which is the ability to integrate chaotic variables into functional solutions, Crystal said. Her patterns shifting to display equations that seem to solve themselves in real time. Where other species see obstacles to be overcome, humans see opportunities to be utilized. Where we calculate compensation for environmental factors, you collaborate with them.
Maya smiled at her friend's explanation. So we're not breaking the laws of physics?
No, Crystal replied. Her patterns brightening with what Maya had learned indicated excitement.
You're applying laws of physics that the rest of us haven't discovered yet. Your shooting technique suggests the existence of environmental relationships that our conventional models haven't accounted for. As Maya watched the latest group of human marksmen achieving impossible accuracy at extreme ranges, she reflected on how completely the galactic understanding of her species had changed. Humans were no longer seen as the coalition's least capable marksmen, but as practitioners of techniques so advanced that they challenged fundamental assumptions about ballistic science. The implications extended far beyond military applications. Human approaches to problem-solving, the adaptability that had enabled survival on countless worlds under impossible conditions, were being studied by coalition scientists in fields ranging from engineering to diplomatic negotiations. But for Maya, the most important achievement wasn't the recognition or the revolutionary techniques, or even the lives saved through her marksmanship. It was the knowledge that humanity had found its place in the galactic community, not by trying to match other species' advantages, but by embracing the unique capabilities that made humans distinctly human. As the sun set over New Montana's training ranges, where human marksmen were routinely achieving shots that had once been considered impossible, Maya Chen reflected on the journey that had brought her from a small farming colony to the center of a galactic military revolution. She had proven that sometimes the most profound discoveries come not from advanced technology or evolutionary advantages, but from the simple human refusal to accept that something cannot be done. And in a galaxy full of species who had perfected their capabilities over millions of years, that refusal was proving to be humanity's greatest strength.